Well, how's it going, everybody? Once again, it is I, the chairman, and today I will be not reviewing, because I have not watched them yet, but previewing the latest Alfred Hitchcock's Classic Collection on 4K from Universal that has just been released, and let's give it a look. So, we all know the first edition of the Classics Collection that Universal released, and that contained Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, and The Birds. And clearly those are four of Alfred Hitchcock's greatest films. Some would even mark those as his four greatest films, but probably not, because you would have to include such films as North by Northwest, that is an MGM film, possibly like A Dial M for Murder, which is a Warner Brothers film, and a few others from the earlier parts of his career. But this set contains 5 films. It contains Saboteur, Shadow of a Doubt, The Trouble with Harry, Marnie, and Family Plot. I was almost going to say Torn Curtain, because that was one of his later films. But this is actually a rather interesting choice, or a selection of films, because they cover over 30 years of Hitchcock's career, from the early 1940s with Saboteur and Shadow of a Doubt to his last directed film, Family Plot. So it's really kind of all over the place in terms of any kind of a theme, and I think it's indicative of that what Universal has of Hitchcock's filmography is obviously not complete. So this second set, and I don't even know if they're going to make a third set, because I don't think they have enough good films left, is definitely a step down from the first one. I mean, clearly it can only be a step down. And so it's really hard to gauge the overall quality of this, because you're talking about vastly different films. Saboteur and Shadow of the Doubt, I think, are probably the two of the better regarded films in this set. But even in comparison to his other films from the pre-war, World War II, and immediate post-war era, these two are not as good as, say, The 39 Steps, Rebecca, Notorious, other films like that, like even Lifeboat or Secret Agent. I think those are all considered better than Shadow of a Doubt and Saboteur. Not saying that Saboteur and Shadow of a Doubt aren't good. I think I don't think I've watched them, but I think they are considered to be decent Hitchcock films, just not as high of a level as those other films. I mean, if you were to put together a list or a set of, say, his pre-war film, his pre-late 40s films, I don't think these two would be on your list. They might be like honorable mentions, but not on that top list. And also you have The Trouble with Harry, which was an interesting course change for Hitchcock in the mid 50s, early to mid to late 50s, which one can regard as being his most successful period creatively and commercially. He decided to make this film, which was I guess you could call it a black comedy, very much different in tone and story than his other films that he was making during the era, such as Dial M for Murder, the Man Who Knew Too Much, Rear Window, To Catch a Thief. And so, yeah, definitely a change of pace for him. I guess he just wanted to do something different at the time. And probably film I'm most interested in watching is Marnie, because I've obviously heard of it, know of it for a long time, just never watched it. And it is his only film that he did with Sean Connery, and Sean Connery was making this film for Hitchcock during probably the height of his popularity as James Bond. So it'd be interesting to see Sean Connery in his prime playing somebody other than James Bond. And so the packaging is identical to the first Classics Collection. So we have all 5 films in this kind of a book format. So you have the inside cover here, just showing different posters, different versions of the posters for the film, and quotes from Hitchcock in the film. And so each film gets their page here. And so obviously, they hype up the fact that film like The Trouble with Harry is an unexpected effort from Alfred Hitchcock, just not something that you would expect from him. And I don't really know that he actually went back and did anything like Trouble with Harry. I don't think so afterwards. But then when you have Marnie, and also what's significant is that the co-star of this film is Tippi Hedren, who had just previously filmed The Birds with Alfred Hitchcock, and I guess it's kind of interesting that she did come back and do another film with Hitchcock based on her considering the traumatic experience that she had filming The Birds. So Tippi Hedren was, I guess, the last of those icy cool blondes that Hitchcock had developed a love for. I mean, I don't know how you would describe it, but obviously he had started that with Grace Kelly, and then she got married, so he could not really use her anymore. And then he thought of using Vera Miles, but Vera Miles, I think, got pregnant, and Vera Miles really wasn't in that class. And then he had Kim Novak, but he only did Vertigo with her. And then there was Janet Leigh. I don't really know that Janet Leigh was in his eye as somebody that he wanted to, I guess, model in, I guess, or turn into his icy cool blonde star. But Tippi Hedren was the last of that group. So, and then you have Family Plot, which was from 1976, and there were a couple films in between Marnie and Family Plot, Topaz, Torn Curtain, and Frenzy. I don't think I have those in exactly the right chronological release order, but those are the three films that he made in between Marnie and Family Plot. And clearly, after The Birds, he was aging. His work wasn't as good. He never made a film that was as good as The Birds after that. So he was on the downside of his career. So really, this set is interesting. I don't know that I would have necessarily bought any of these films individually, but as a set, I mean, I think it's worth getting just because it's an interesting look at Hitchcock's career. I mean, it really spans almost the entirety of his time in Hollywood, because he came to Hollywood, I believe, in the late 30s, and obviously worked in Hollywood up until his death. So this covers over 30 years of his career. So it's just interesting look into how he progressed from even before or just right at the beginning of World War II all the way to almost what we think of as like the modern era. He almost directed films that released at the same time as films like Star Wars. It's hard to imagine that Alfred Hitchcock almost made a film that released at the same time as Star Wars, because it's hard to think of two, I guess, film ideas in film that are as different from each other as like an Alfred Hitchcock film is from a Star Wars film. So, but anyway, I'm definitely looking forward to giving those films a watch. I don't know that I'll watch every one of them, but I'm definitely going to watch Marnie first, and maybe I will post a review on it. So we'll see. But until then, it has been a pleasure discussing Alfred Hitchcock with you, and this is the Chairman signing out. Until next time, see you.